I want to read to you from Mark's Gospel, chapter 1, just a few verses. Verses 16, I was going to stand on that, but that's all right. Verses 16 to 20, and the words will be up on the screen. One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fish for people." And they left their nets at once and followed him. A little farther up the shore, Jesus saw Zebedee's son James and John in a boat repairing their nets. He called them at once, and they also followed him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men. Not many verses to look at this morning, but hopefully something that will speak to us. There is a chorus that we used to sing, well, sometimes we still sing it in the Salvation Army, "To be like Jesus. This hope possesses me in every thought and deed. This is my aim, my creed, to be like Jesus. His Spirit helping me, like him I will be." That's a song that we can sing. We talked before about, I mentioned before, we sing songs and sometimes we believe them wholeheartedly. Sometimes they're aspirational, songs that we want to believe. We want them to come true in our own lives. Other songs we sing like "Trust and Obey" because there's no other way. That's a lie, because there is another way, right? But it's got a good beat, so we all get involved in it, right? So we do sing words, we use words that are powerful, that speak to us in different ways. But if we were to sing, and we won't, but if we were to think about this prayer chorus for a moment, to be like Jesus, this is my aim, this is what I want to do. This is the point of being a Jesus follower. Not to be active in the church, not to serve in all the different ways that we can, but first and foremost, it comes out of a relationship and a desire, a deep desire to, one, know Jesus, to become more like him, that our lives would be shaped, our decisions would be informed, our actions would be a response to the work of Jesus in our own lives. So if we were to sing that, this is my aim, my creed. This is the one thing that I want to do, first and foremost. So I make a list of all the things. Top of that list is to be like Jesus. I've been a Jesus follower for a long time. Not as long as some of you. Mrs. Mundy. I decided many years ago when I was at a camp, I was in Tasmania at a music camp. It's where I learned to play the trombone, actually. I do notice you've never asked me to play, but that's all right. And the reason I play the trombone was, this is why. Some people sort of play the trombone because they love it or play a musical instrument. I was down there and I at a music camp, and I just wanted to sit in the band with some of my friends. And he played trombone. And this was back when they had lots of people and you used to have to audition for the bands. And I said to him, "Can I borrow your trombone?" He said, "But you don't play the trombone." I said, "Well, it can't be that hard." Anyway, so I took about 20 minutes. I got a little tune down, and off I go. Anyway, ever since then, play the trombone. Anyway, I don't know why I told you that. The whole point is that I went to this camp, and there was the last night of camp. And if you've been to these camps, and I can see some people in this room been to these camps, the last night everyone just starts crying, gives their lives to Jesus, going to go and serve overseas and become an officer and whatever. That's how these camps would kind of end. And I sat there thinking, oh my goodness, just knock it off. And then I remember this, something happened in me. And it was the first time I really felt in that moment that Jesus spoke to me. And so from that day on, without going into all the detail, from that day on, I recognised that I wanted my life to be with him. I wanted to live a life that reflected that Jesus was in my life. Now, I've had many wonderful experiences since that opportunity that I experienced. I've shared with people lots of different moments. I've been at people when their new lives have been, babies, and we get excited about that. I've been with people at the deaths, people marriages are beginning, marriages are ending, breakthroughs, miracles, healings, whatever, all this stuff. And I've been a part of this and I've experienced it, and so have we. And we've all got to experience these wonderful things, except for me, I have a confession. Would you like to hear my confession? I'm only going to give you one of them, not all of them, right? I have spent way too much of my life developing in areas other than following Jesus. I have. It's not a leadership course the Army hasn't run in the last 20 years that I haven't attended. Or there's not some experience that's going to be a part of that, And I have done all that. And there was for me, this sense where what was my anchor point in becoming more and more like Jesus, this hope possessed me. It actually, for a while, it didn't. It wasn't my aim. It wasn't my belief. I believed something else. And so for me, I think about what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? What would I think my life would look like if I did that on a daily basis? And so we read this story in the Gospel of Mark where Jesus is talking to the fishermen. And they're just going about their lives. They don't have a desire. They're not saying, I just want to be like Jesus. They're not thinking that. They're trying to figure out why they can't catch any fish. And yet they get interrupted. And this interruption comes along and Jesus says to them, "Come, follow me." See, the invitation is one thing. The accepting the invitation is another thing. But the next part of it is remaining in the invitation. It's not a one-off invitation. It's an invitation that Jesus makes to us on a daily basis. If I look at this scripture and I do a quick flyover, Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee. He sees these two men, Simon and Andrew, fishing. He makes this request to them. He's teaching. He says, we're going to shift focus here. I'm going to change your life because you're not going to fish for fish. I'm going to teach you to fish for people. And it all comes down to come, follow me. You think about some 3-word phrases that change the shape of someone's life. The first time you say to someone, "I love you," or "I am sorry," or I don't know, think of them, "You're clever." But there's this one invitation, this 3-word rhythm. Come, follow me. Come, follow me. And Jesus calls these disciples not only just to follow him, but to walk after him, to be close to him. And we can think about this in 2 ways. We can think about it in the literal sense, like I'm going this way, follow me, right? And you walk behind someone and you kind of learn and you gather all their teachings along the way. You take, you listen, you learn, you do. You take, you learn, you listen, you do. Because it's a process where you observe. Now, when I left school, I'm a signwriter by trade. I did an apprenticeship. And part of an apprenticeship is that you just watch. It's quite boring. You spend a lot of time watching and cleaning. Right? It doesn't matter what trade you do. That's how it starts. And you observe people. And then occasionally you watch someone do something, I could do that. And then the next moment you have a go at it. And then you realise, actually, I can't do that. So I'll go back to cleaning. And then you sort of build up and you just gather more and more information. You gather more and more along the way. And all of a sudden, you find yourself through years and years of experience. You haven't actually sat in a classroom and listened to someone do it. You've actually watched them. You've watched people, you've been able to give it a go, and you've had the opportunity to fail, and you've had the opportunity to relearn and to do it again. And you get better and better and better. Like, any hairdressers in the room? Not that I need one, by the way, but is any hairdressers? You don't just walk in and go, right, I'm going to be a hairdresser, give me some scissors, and you get cracking. No, you don't. You watch them and you learn. You're a plumber. You don't just start digging up driveways and charging thousands of dollars an hour to do it. No, you don't. You build up to that. You don't just you don't give a welding machine. So give me a weld. I'm going to start welding. It doesn't happen like that. We watch and we learn. We watch and we learn and we do. And this is the same for us as disciples, as followers of Jesus. That it's the same thing for us. It doesn't just go bang. We know everything. Jesus lives in me. Hooray! Actually, Jesus lives in me now. Now the work begins, where I watch, I listen, and I learn and I try. There's a story in Ezekiel chapter 46, this idea where learning becomes a process, or moving into a deeper sense of trust, is the imagery in Ezekiel is that this water flowing out of a temple. And if you could, I'm not going to climb up on that, but if you can think about this, the scripture talks about one moment they're there, and then they say that they move down and the water becomes ankle deep. Now, we've all splashed around in ankle deep water, yes? Right? Now there's lots of people in the world, jump in a pool, are you like, oh, that is so cold, right? Now there's two types of people in my world. You're either a big tower, like, oh, that's so cold, or you just jump in. Jump-ins? Yes. Big towers? It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. Because my theory is, you're going to end up in anyway, right? So take 15 minutes and talk about how cold it is and, whatever, or just jump in, because the same result. Anyway, ankle deep. Then the scripture says, as the water flowed, then became knee deep. And they take another step. And all of a sudden they go a little bit further and it's waist deep. So all the way they're holding on to the side, and there's this experience of, I'm trusting more, I'm trusting more, I'm trusting more. Then it says at the end of that scripture, which I won't read, it's the end of it, and it's waist deep. And then they get to the next bit where they get it's so deep that they have to let go and they have to trust, and they basically swim. Because they've relinquished that. But they didn't just go deep. They went ankles, they went knees, they went waist, and then they let go. If you've ever taught someone to swim, it's a process. It's a slow process. Yet when we think about following Jesus, we think we can do it quickly. We can't. Sorry, we can't. It's actually a slow, unwinding process for all of us. And so this idea that you get to the deep bit, and all of a sudden, when you're there, there's an element of trust, but there's also an element of knowledge. There's an element of experience that you can impart, and you can go and do the thing that God has called you to do. There's let me just read this. It's kind of like a spiritual analogy where there's a picture of increasing progress and depth in our spiritual life. Progression from ankles to knees to waist to depths where one can no longer touch the ground and must swim. And they shouldn't stop until they are swimming, carried along by God's currents and comfortable. But to trust all the way. If we were to throw all the disciples in a pool and everyone just hung on to the edge, or everyone goes, I've done the toddler pool, that's where we start. But it's about progress. So when Jesus says to the disciples, come, follow me, he's not saying, come and you, all of a sudden you just take over everything I've done, recognising that it's a process. This is why, they're turning blue. This is why this is important. Because we talked about it this morning that you become what you hang around. What they talked about in Scripture was being covered in the dust of the Rabbi. So staying close enough to Jesus that you would be covered in the dust of the Rabbi. So long before Jesus was around, this idea of Jewish people had a teacher, Rabbi. And by staying close, you would get these tiny little granules of sand all over you. And because as the Rabbi would walk through the dust, you would catch it because you were close. Now, when we see dust, we all get out of the way, shut the door, close the windows. The idea is that you remain so close that you would catch the dust of the Rabbi. That's why it's important for us not to see Jesus as a remote being or something that I can call upon on Sunday morning, but actually every day I want to stay close because I want whatever this is to change this. This being the base, this being us, and this us being changed. That's why I don't clean our house. I just tell people it's the dust of Jesus. For those of you who got grandkids or you got kids at school and they bring home like a poster with pasta glued to it and glitter and all that sort of stuff, if you know what it's like to get this glitter in your house, it's annoying, right? Everyone goes, oh, that's wonderful. And I'm like, go and give it to the grandparents. They'll love it. Right? I can tell you that I have vacuumed carpet that's had glitter on it 100 times. And I think, it's still there. I've actually moved house. And I think, I reckon that glitter came with us. I've moved into state and I think that glitter. Because once it gets on you, it's very hard to get off you, right? This is kind of the same thing. That once it sticks to us, once we become a part of it, once we interact with it, that we are changed forever. So, how do we get covered in the dust of the Rabbi? Well, Hebrew people, the Hebrew tradition talks about a thing called halakha. Halakha, which is more than just walking. It's kind of broader to mean our whole lifestyle. Everything we do is in response to halakha. Our lifestyles reflecting Jesus at work in us. The way we behave, the way we speak, the way we interact with others. In fact, the way we do everything. You know, if we think about this for a moment, we can think about ways in which we are promised that our lives are changed. Now, we can say that if you meet Jesus, your life will be changed. Or you can meet Jesus and this will be different. Or we could say, if you do this, wear these clothes, you'll be different. If you take this, you'll be different. We're always encouraged to be changed and to be different. There's actually a billions and billions and billions of dollar industry around telling people that they are not quite right. But we have the solution, right? This is what we tell people all the time. So we forget that we're not unique and wonderfully made. We try to remind people that they are different and they need fixing. Jesus says to us, I love you for who you are. I love you for who you are. Just come, follow me. And I will do the rest. Come, follow me. Many years ago, I used to be a songster leader. That's not a joke, by the way. That's true. And we used to sing this song, I've been changed. I've been reborn. All my life has been rearranged. What a difference it made when the Lord came and stayed. Oh yes, I've been changed. And we are changed. And we sang at the beginning of our worship time together, are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Power in the blood of the Lamb. The redemption, the healing, the restoration, whatever it is, the freedom. Use all the bingo buzzwords that you want to use. This idea that we can be transformed because we said yes to an invitation to come and follow him. We sing lots of songs about the blood. We sing lots of songs about the fire. We sing lots of songs about the Spirit. It strikes me, and it's pretty obvious why we don't, but we don't sing any songs about the dust. We don't do it. We don't. Because singing songs about the dust isn't really attractive. But actually everybody in this room at some level says, I want to be covered in the dust of the Rabbi. I want my life to be changed because I accepted an invitation where he said to me, come and follow me. So the question I want to leave you with this morning is, who are we becoming like? You probably don't know this about me, but I was probably a model student at school. I might be lying. And you know when your parents would say, I really don't want you hanging around with them? They were talking about me. I used to have a lot of fun. But even from a very early age, this idea that we become like the things that we hang around or the people that we hang around is still true. It's still true. So who are we becoming like? Or what do we want to become like? And what steps do we make in a positive direction to allow our lives to be that way? My hope and prayer this morning is that we want to become more and more like Jesus. To be like Jesus. This hope possesses me. And we never get to a stage where we go, actually, I've been on this journey for X amount of years, made it. I finished my apprenticeship, I'm qualified. The problem with the Christian faith is you never stop learning. You never stop growing. Now we can become a bit stagnant at times. We can become a little jaded at times. But actually the invitation is always still for all of us. Those who know Jesus in the room, those who don't. Those that have known Jesus for a long time, those who are still trying to figure out what it all means. We're always being changed. We are always being changed. You know, we love when we read, I think it's Corinthians. Sometimes I just make scripture up too, by the way, but I think it's in Corinthians, where it says, the old has gone and the new has come. Now, I love this idea of the old has gone and the new has come, voila, magic. But actually, the old sometimes takes a little while to go. And then we form into the new. And this is the process of apprenticing. This is the process of walking. This is the process of halakha, of living our whole lives that reflect to catch the dust of the one with whom we want to become. And my hope this morning is that the one that we want to become like is Jesus. No one else. Help us to become more like him so that we can declare to be like Jesus. This hope possesses me. In every thought and deed, this is my aim, my creed. To be like Jesus, this hope possesses me. His Spirit helping me, like him I'll be. And we can pray that every morning for the rest of our lives. And we'll be changed. Go and cover yourself in the dust. Walk closely to the one who knows. And allow your lives to be a reflection of all that he has and hopes for you.